A successful diet is one that helps you achieve a lean body. It's for you to get serious amounts of progress, and it's for you to be in the best shape of your life. And a successful diet is one that is sustainable. It's one where you make some permanent changes with your habits and you don't revert back to the old habits that didn't serve you in the past. It's a protocol that provides a lifestyle change and flows into your day-to-day actions. A successful diet is one that actually complements your life and it doesn't complicate it. It's paced effectively so that it's not too extreme. Ultimately, gives you freedom. So the desired outcome, you're going to learn how to essentially lose body fat in the most optimal way possible. So for you to lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So we go about creating this calorie deficit by finding out how much calories you specifically need at first. We will then take a look at the calories, how much you're intaking, how your body is responding to that intake, and tweak the protocol when needed. Now, a successful diet protocol has 2 steps. So you might be asking things like, do we need to change our training? Do we need to switch training completely? Do we start doing ultra high reps in every workout in order to lose weight? All these questions I've really heard before. And to be honest with you, there's no such thing as a generic fat burning workout. Yes, you will be burning calories when you work out, which is what we want, but you are much, much better off letting your calorie deficit take care of the fat loss for you. But the other areas we will look at are the overall dieting process and your nutrition. Principle number 1 would be getting the process right. So we need to get the process right, finding your sweet spot. So you can have no process or you can have an overcomplicated process. To lose body fat, we need an easy, simple process. You need to be focusing on the calories, the steps, the sessions that you've nailed, your weight, measurements, and of course, progress photos. We don't want to have too much complexity when it comes to our approach. Also, you can have too much pressure or no pressure at all. When it comes to dieting, we want to get the expectation management right. You don't want to feel like you've no pressure and you don't want to feel like you've too much. You want that accountability where it's just right. Most people will put pressure on themselves right before a holiday or an event, rushing to get in shape. This then leads to failure because it's too much change too soon. And we want to have a healthy amount of challenge. There does need to be a deadline, of course, for a diet phase to be done. Otherwise, it will drag on much longer than actually needed. So you also need to think, short-term focused and long-term focused. When you're on a diet, it's best to focus on short-term goals initially, and things like how can I hit my calories today? How can I nail my steps across the week? And then at the same time, over the course of the calendar year, plan those 90-day targets, which is every 3 months. You might aim to have 20 pounds shifted off in that time, so that you can get out of your diet phase for good and end up in a reverse phase where you're actually focusing on lean gaining and building muscle tissue, which is much more enjoyable. You don't want to be solely outcome focused or too process focused either. With the journey, it's important to ensure we're focusing on the overall physical outcome. But the key ingredients to that is focusing a bit on the process as well. Focusing on how you can be the type of person that actually never misses their steps. Focusing on how you can ensure you crush your calorie targets, focusing on taking regular progress check-ins, celebrating the small wins, and how you're kind of moving forward compared to the previous week that you put down. Exclusive and inclusive. So to be successful with your dieting efforts, you have to not fall into the trap of being all or nothing, not including any of your favorite foods. Otherwise, you can end up developing a high level of food focus, and in some cases, almost an obsession. It can really make you develop an unhealthy relationship with certain foods. But a general principle is to have 80% of your calories from high quality nutritious foods, and then the other 20% from some of your favorite foods. Disconnected to the why and connected to the why. This is an important one. So if you're not connected to your why, the reason why you're actually wanting to achieve this goal, why you're there in the first place trying to do it, your barriers along this journey will cause you to make poor quality decisions. You'll possibly slack off in your training, your nutrition, your standards, and your steps. Why is it important you nail this diet successfully? Why is it important that you show up for yourself at your best each and every day? The next principle I want to take you through is consistency and intensity. So staying on track is better than guns blazing and then not actually moving forward. So you want to focus on finishing your week knowing that you've been consistent throughout the whole week. Then from there, if you feel like you can raise the intensity of the diet, then do so. However, until you're mastering consistency, there's no point trying to make the diet more intense than it needs to be. Minimums and maximums. So to make it easier to be consistent, it's important to give yourself some bandwidth, especially if your lifestyle structure can maybe change quite a lot from week to week because of work, family, or other commitments. So instead of focusing on, we'll say, 4 sessions per week, you might change it to 3 to 5 sessions. And that will be your target. Or instead of 2,200 calories per week, you might focus on being between 2,100 and 2,300. Then ensure your calories fall within that bandwidth. Principle number 4 is measuring fat loss effectively. So to ensure you're progressing, we must measure fat loss effectively. Most individuals won't have any process for actually analyzing their progress. So important as well that you just don't focus solely on the scales, because they don't essentially tell you how you look. There could be numerous factors that could also skew your scale weight for that day, such as the time of day you weighed in, your water intake, your salt intake, the amount of food you have in your system, or if you're stressed at certain times, or maybe for females, the time of the month. So this is why we monitor your fat loss through various variables when it comes to measurements, photos, your weight, biofeedback, and overall performance. So principle number 5 is getting the process right. So there's 3 types of dieters that I want to take you through. So the first one is dieter number 1, who slips up, moves on, and is successful. Then you have dieter number 2, who slips up and lies. Then you have dieter number 3, who doesn't even try. This can be something that someone can put off. The fact anyone is making an effort consciously and trying to better themselves, they will go out there and do their very best. But so when it comes to changing our habits, you have to remember that usually poor habits take years and years to develop, and they won't always be able to be changed or removed in a few weeks. You will also have maybe slip-ups on your diet, and that's okay. It happens. And the worst thing you can do is deny it or hide it. So you're better off acknowledging it, accepting it, and moving on, and that's how you become successful. So on your side, what you can do to recognize when you actually do slip up is get curious about why it occurred. Make note of it, journal about it, and you'll see that maybe there's a consistency in it. There's something that triggers you. There might be a frequency of the slip-ups, and hopefully then you can learn how to pull back on them and make them drop off over time, so you can progress even further with your results. What I'm going to cover now is ways in which you can actually set up your diet that will actually lower the chances or the possibility of you slipping up. And that's going to be covered in the nutrition principles. Principle number 1 of this is combating hunger. So when it comes to hunger, your ability to control this will be obviously key in being successful. Now, often we can confuse hunger with boredom, dehydration, distracting ourselves, and just eating for the sake of it. And there will also be sometimes where you get the urge to eat more food from a place of want rather than need. And it's important to be aware of your food urges. So to combat hunger, we have to set our meals to ensure we are fully satiated. So choosing certain foods can help with hunger too. And it's important to recognize when you're actually exercising self-control around your eating decisions, to view this as a choice rather than a restriction. That way, it'll make the whole process a lot more pleasing to follow. So principle number 2 is choosing the right foods. So when trying to drop body fat, lowering calories is the goal, of course. Technically, you could eat Mars bars or McDonald's 3 times a day, and you could still lose body fat, but it would be incredibly hard to maintain because you would feel like absolute shit throughout the day. Energy levels would be poor, and you just wouldn't feel one bit healthy. So to make the most effective food choices, you want to think about foods that are actually low in calories, but also high in satiety, so they keep you feeling fuller for longer. And a common mistake that can often be made is associating that healthy foods are always low in calories. People wondering why they're not seeing results. They're eating healthy foods. Things like avocados, dark chocolate, nuts, salmon, mackerel are just a few foods to name that are actually quite high in calories and commonly seen as healthy. And they are healthy, but you can overconsume them as well. So you do need to pay attention to the calorie content in your food. So principle number 3 is pinpointing the right time to eat. So there will be times in the day where you're hungrier than others. When it comes time that you actually need to eat, there isn't a specific time that benefits you more from a fat loss perspective, but from an adherence standpoint, planning meals mostly around when you're hungry will be most effective for you. So if you feel like at dinner you're hungrier than in the morning, then give yourself more calories at that time. This can make it much easier and give you more food for when you feel like you actually need it or want it most. On a weekly level, if you know that you tend to eat more calories because you're possibly maybe eating out or indulging on higher calorie foods, creating a calorie buffer where you actually have a higher day of calories can help massively with adherence too. So fat loss doesn't solely occur on a day-to-day basis. So you can look at the overall weekly calories and maybe 1 or 2 days allow for yourself to go over your calorie amount. So for example, if you have a daily calorie allowance of 2000 calories, we'll say, and you multiply that by 7 days a week, you get 14,000 calories. Now, if you wanted to have more calories on, we'll say over the weekend or one particular day, you wanted to have a higher amount, you could eat 1800 calories Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You've already banked 1200 calories. You could have an extra 1000 on Saturday. So you could have 3000 calories on the Saturday. And then on Sunday, you could even have an extra 200. You could have 2000 calories. There would still equal 14,000. The calories are distributed in favor for when you're actually likely to eat more calories. And adherence is crucial, obviously, to altering your calorie intake. And this can build up your confidence and consistency during the process by doing these things and making those allowances for yourself. And it doesn't mean you need to eat the same foods day in, day out, but it means that you're more proactive with your meal prep. You know, you've made meals for the next day, you've entered them into your tracker, you know, there's a regular rhythm with the meals you eat, you stay consistent. And this reduces decision fatigue and increases the chances of your overall adherence. It's not to say that you can't eat as you go as well, but from an effective perspective, planning ahead reduces the chances of going off track. So eating practices is principle number 4. So meal hygiene is something that you've likely never paid attention to when it comes to dieting. It's not commonly spoken about in such a fast-paced world. It needs attention to help maintain self-awareness. So poor meal hygiene can make it harder for you to control yourself in new environments. It can leave you feeling hungry, over-consuming calories, and not digesting your food effectively. So to improve your meal hygiene, satiety, overall awareness, and mindfulness around food, you need to not eat on the move. You need to sit down and focus on actually enjoying the meal, chewing your food, and being present with it. You need to move away from a workstation and have a separate area for where you eat. Drink water as well while you're eating the food. Very, very important. And it's important to have a food environment that actually supports your goals. It makes it easier for you to make high quality food decisions. Our environment can have a heavy influence on our eating behavior. So you'll want to set out your environment in favor of your dietary efforts to make it much easier. And a few things to consider with your food environment will be things like food availability. So if you have like a whole packet of biscuits open, there's no chance that you could possibly overeat beyond the allocated amount of biscuits you intended to have. You might have only wanted to have 2 or 3. Next thing you know, the whole packet's gone. Food choices as well. You know, the phrase out of sight, out of mind. If you have high calorie foods out of reach, you'll obviously reduce your chances of having them or eating them. And who you eat with as well. You know, as humans, we are easily influenced. If your flatmate or your partner is having pasta for dinner and it's their turn to cook, the flatmate isn't on a diet, they're not so concerned about the calories that's going to be in the meal. This can make it hard for you then to adhere to your calorie target. So sometimes you're going to need to take control over your diet. This doesn't mean that you can't eat with others. It just means that you need to outline what you're eating, the amounts, so that it fits your nutritional needs. The more accurate you can be with your diet, the more precise and sooner you get your results. And it's normal after your loved ones start seeing changes with you as well, and they'll often start to make healthier choices because you are. So I'd recommend from the start outlining your goals to them if you are on a transformational journey, and it will help you along your process. Principle number 5, gone off track. So with that, on this journey, there is going to be times where you might slip up and go off track. And I don't expect anyone to be perfect along their transformational journey. You know, it is normal to have slip-ups. And it's important that you are aware of the factors that obviously could derail you from being off track. And you can find yourself wanting to make poor quality decisions when you're bored, when you're lonely, anxious, stressed, tired, emotional, or drained. And these are times where you can be prone to making poor decisions to seek comfort. There may be times you go off track even without any of these situations. During this, you might need to ask yourself some higher quality questions, such as, does eating this actually help me achieve my goals? So it's important to get curious, to find yourself like why you're wanting to go off track. Remember, you're only one meal away from actually being on track. It's important to never have 2 poor quality meals in a row.